We're just entering into the end of things here, and the next little while is going to be there's some really pretty sad and tragic things that I'm dealing with, and it's reflected in the songs that I was writing at the time. But again, through it all, I've always been seeking to um, find hope and comfort and strength in the Lord. It was at a very difficult time, and I guess part of what we're talking like 5 years later after the event that occurred in 1985, which was the really I look back on it later, years after this actually, and I realized that that was really the pivotal moment when the marriage actually had ended, but I wasn't really aware of that partly because the way that I was grossly misled about the event that occurred, and um, um, and the subsequent, basically, what they call that again, the cognitive. Um, oh, what's that? Oh, I can't remember what I call it. Senior moment. Um, I just simply couldn't face the reality of what had actually occurred because what actually had happened is, and I didn't cognitive just associative. What do they call it? I can't remember now. But anyway, um, you see, I wasn't aware of the truth, although deep down in my heart, I really believe that I did understand what had actually occurred, but I couldn't face the truth of it. And because I was lied to, what had happened, what she said to me actually was she had said, and she admitted this years later. Finally, it came out. And this was years later, obviously. This is around this time where she was finally actually admitting what actually had occurred, and what had actually occurred is, although she told me at the time that she'd been raped, it wasn't. And in fact, right immediately after I was wanting to go to the police and everything, and she was like, "No, no, can't do that. I won't go to the police. No, no, no." But I did finally, but she still insisted that she'd been raped. And then, but anyway, within 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, I did convince her to go down to the rape crisis center, and we went down there, and that was again one of those moments where I simply couldn't face the reality of what really what was had occurred, because we went in there and started talking to our counselor, and within like just a few minutes, the counselor suddenly said, "Okay, hold it a second, and you, Mr. Roberts, you need to leave. I want to talk to your wife alone." And then about 15 or 20 minutes, she came out, and she was obviously very agitated, and so I never heard what went on between them. And I asked, what happened. She said, "Nope, no, I'm not going to talk about it. Nope, I won't say a word about it." No, she refused to talk to me about that. And and the other thing that a couple of things to bear in mind is that the attitude that was coming from the her parents about the whole thing was that these things were happening because I was apparently, according to literally out of the mouth of her father, was that I didn't love her enough, which at the time was something that I actually did believe, at least to a certain extent. But I look back and I realize that that's absolute crap. Of course I did. And and what was happening is, as we go into 1990, she's actually chasing after other men, literally. In fact, she would phone up friends of mine from high school, guys that I knew weren't Christians or anything, and she'd be chatting with them on the phone, and they'd be getting back to me saying, "Hey, your wife phoning me up and kind of flirting with me all the time." Like seriously, this was happening right before me, right in front of me, as it were. Actually, I did even hear her and see her doing it in front of me, talking to these guys. And I'd say, "Well, you shouldn't be doing that," and then she'd get real mad at me, and I was a terrible guy because I wasn't giving her the freedom to do whatever she wanted. And now the other thing that I found out right about this time as well was that she did. I asked her one day when it became more clear, because this took time, literally a few years before she finally admitted, "Well, actually, yeah, I wasn't actually raped," but then she came up with the idea or the excuse that the counselor she was going to, who was a total flake. I mean, really was. I mean, seriously, a flake. Um, apparently, he because of his counseling style of just I agree with everything you say, and then consoling and literally taking her in his arms and, giving her, comforting her that way, literally. And she told me that herself. She said that he lowered her inhibitions or something to that effect, and that was the reason. And then later on, probably right around this time, one day we were talking about this, and I just said, clearly, now you're admitting you weren't actually raped, so you did this on purpose. And she admitted, yeah. And I said, well, why? Why did you do it? And the answer was absolutely appalling. She said, because I wanted to hurt you. And that's what I was dealing with. Although at this point in time in my life, this is 1990 here, I didn't understand these things. These were things that were, pretty much hidden from me, and I was only getting the bits and pieces. So this is a lot of this stuff I'd figured out and learned over the years. So anyway, having said that, again, I want to remind, if you've been watching this from the series from the beginning, I'm not defeated. I was, that staggering on triumphantly kind of thing. That Monty Python, was that Monty Python movie where he's a knight and he gets one arm cut off and he gets a leg cut off and he's blood spurting everywhere and he's like, I'm still fighting. That was kind of me. And I never gave up. That's in a sense a good thing, I guess, is that we're supposed to love unconditionally. But I had a incorrect understanding that no matter what, I should sacrifice even my dignity and my honor to try to save this. And clearly, as I look back, I was like, oh man, wasn't I ever dumb? I mean, really. But naive and idealistic, and really not a very not very smart. But nevertheless, in the end, through it all, God remained very faithful to me, and I had a lot of things to learn, both about myself and about life, and about her too. Now, and the thing is that basically, this is in the summer of 1990. She's saying, "Okay, I want you gone. I can't have you around anymore," and whatever. And she was actually at this time chasing after guys, a couple of different guys. I know there was one affair that was going on. In fact, it was in her family pool that this was going on, that her father had made this comment to her brother about, if Robin had loved her enough, she wouldn't have to do this, to her brother, who was saying, don't you think you should try to put a stop to this? And that was her father's response. And that was the toxic situation that I had, that I was dealing with in that family. And I didn't really even understand that at the time. But anyway, so we're going to go on. So I'm going to 1990, and she's just told me to get lost. I don't want you around anymore, and I was defeated. This whole thing had just worn me down, because one of the key things that has changed literally in the last year was the final piece of the understanding of this whole thing, is that I now understand this was a classic textbook narcissist that I was dealing with, and I'm just turning off my hearing aid here. And I didn't understand that, and that was the final piece of the puzzle, and finally freed me up to address and to go forward with this project of sharing all this now, because that was the final thing I needed to have understood in my mind and in my heart. So and I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm great. I'm having a wonderful, peaceful, love-filled, and joyful life. And I'm just so thankful that God, and I'm even thankful that God put me through this, because I had things that I needed to learn. The Joseph, when he revealed himself to his brothers, and they were thinking, oh man, he's gonna do us in because of what we did to him. And Joseph's response is, peace. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. And that's my understanding, and so I'm okay with all this. God was at work in me. It was worth the price, even though I paid a very heavy price. But nevertheless, God is good. And so here we are in 1990. Things have just finally come to an end. Although we did get back together briefly in 90. late 1990, around Christmas time. But that was a ruse, because part of the Plan B I mentioned in another earlier video was had to do with a money situation, and I was duped into signing a letter that basically put me on the hook for money for the mobile home that we had bought, that she and her mother had insisted that we buy, and then, which I was against, which made me a bad guy. And then they insisted immediately after the incident in 1985, we had to sell at a horrendous loss. So now we had this great big debt and I realized looking back, it was because they wanted her to be free, to not have this financial commitment for her. And I was conveniently there for that. So anyway, let's go on. This song was written in August of 1990. It's called "I Will Lean Upon the Lord." I will lean upon the Lord, for His love is greater than my fear. He is faithful, He is true. I will lean upon the Lord. I will lean upon the Lord, for His love is greater than my fear. He is faithful, He is true. I will lean on the Lord. When the storm clouds gather and the enemy is at the door, He gives faith greater, in His strength I endure. Oh, I will lean upon the Lord, for His love is greater than my fear. He is faithful, He is true. I will lean upon the Lord. When the storm clouds gather and the enemy is at the door, He gives faith greater, in His strength I endure. Oh, I will lean upon the Lord, for His love is greater than my fear. He is faithful, He is true. I will lean upon the Lord. He is faithful,